So welcome to the first episode of Give a Shit podcast. I thought long and hard about who that first guest might be, and I'd like to introduce that first guest as my wife, Stacey Hassall.
Hello.
Hello. Nice to have you.
Thank you. I'm ashamed you couldn't get anyone better.
I thought it would be good for us to talk about our journey together on what we've achieved so far, how far we've come as a couple, about working together within the business. So I suppose my first question is you might as well introduce yourself.
Okay, well, I'm Stacey Hassall and I'm the compliance director for the business now. But I started out as, I think, general dog's body, transport, I think mainly being the first area that I helped out in, making the tea, chicken burgers, I think quite a lot. And then, yeah, obviously I'd got a bit of background in health and safety prior to this, so just built on that for the business. Actually produced a proper set of rams for you because I think the first one was from a scaffolding firm. So, yeah, now obviously as compliance director.
So the daily job?
Well, I suppose all health and safety and compliance, it's a bit of a word, isn't it, that it covers a lot of things, but health and safety, so it is like risk assessments and method statements for the work that we do, and then all of the information that goes with that, so audits and satisfying, certain accreditations that we have, and then things like insurances and HR, all of the more
governance that goes with that.
Lots of the governance, lots of things and highlighter pens to go through, and so yeah, that's probably general day to day.
And so,
I'm buying the loo roll actually.
How long have you been with the business?
Oh, it's 10 years this year. But obviously I started off, I think it was like I used to do about 2 mornings a week, I think, while the kids were little. But now obviously full time. So yeah, 10 years. So I'll expect a gift.
And what keeps you...
Which is difficult because I normally buy the gifts, don't I? So I'll just take myself shopping.
So what keeps you motivated to keep coming?
Well, I genuinely love it. I think sometimes when you think about it, it's flooring at the end of the day. Like, it's not that, we're not saving lives or anything like that. But I think genuinely, I think it's the flooring is just a bit of a product of the business, whereas I think I care just about the business as a whole, like the people in it, and hopefully what working here gives them. Not, everyone comes to work for money to pay their bill. I get that, that's part of it. But I think here we do try and do things a little bit different. We try and look after them. We've had a team meeting this morning and we've come in early to make sure there's bacon sandwiches here. And it's just those little things. And I think you'll notice that with me, food's a common occurrence to get people on side is just feed them.
And
that's how we're married, isn't it? The Yorkshire puddings have kept us.
So long.
So if anyone needs a Yorkshire pudding recipe, hit me up.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what do you think your now next, journey looks like? You've been with the business 10 years. Do you think what that next step is for you? Compliance director, what's next?
I think probably just more building on... I'm part way through my degree, so I've got to get that completed, which should be done next year.
What degree is that?
Occupational health. So, and it's good, it's really interesting. It just, you can get very bogged down in the day-to-day of what we do, whereas actually health and safety as a whole is huge. So it's good for that, to take yourself out of your day-to-day and put yourself in a completely different scenario and thinking about health and safety. More so as a whole, to make sure it's long term. I think for me, looking at the long term effects of what we do and making sure that we have control measures in place so we don't have those issues.
Because people associate health and safety with being quite boring, don't they? And it has this stigma.
You're on site with a clipboard. You think, God, health and safety is it? Yeah, I get it. And there are definitely people in this industry that are like that, because you have that ability to go onto a site and you have that ability to say stop, You know, this isn't happening. You know, you're putting somebody in danger. And I think it's a bit, people get a bit power hungry with it. But it's trying to change that around of, because people care about it once they get hurt. Suddenly they expect you to have done X, Y, and Z, even though when you are providing people with control measures, better ways of doing things, PPE, they don't listen. Oh, I've always done it this way. Oh, health and safety in my day. That's what you hear all the time.
What's the shittest part of the job?
I think sometimes that can be hard, dealing with people that just have no interest in health and safety. That's really difficult because...
So how have you instilled that into people that work at Falcon?
I think probably one of the easiest ways is learning on mistakes that have happened where somebody has maybe been hurt. And I don't necessarily mean seriously hurt, but just seeing, you know, a severe cut from a knife that we use obviously every day and quite bad, and you know, someone requires stitches. There's nothing better than physically sort of seeing that.
What is the worst accident you've had on site?
On site,
you've had to deal with.
Two spring to mind. We had one where something fell from a staircase and struck a member of our team, and was in hospital for, you know, quite a long time, and will impact the rest of his life. You know, he probably will not be able to stay in flooring. Again, that was difficult because it wasn't an issue from our part. It was you know, a third party that caused the issue, but you're still dealing with the effects and the fallout from it with your member of staff. And then we had another one where he managed to amputate his little finger.
Oh.
Well, top of finger.
Cut it off.
Cut it off, yeah. So that's not nice.
They're pretty grim, aren't they?
Yeah, they're not great. And I think the problem is I think any sort of accident, certainly that requires, say, a hospital visit or what have you, But there are several people that still work here that have had that, where they've had a cut and they've not been wearing their gloves, but yet they still don't wear them. So
coming from an angle of Falcon is about, you know, our purpose is give a shit. How much shits did we give about them people that got hurt?
Oh, we gave a shit about them all, you know, not just in terms...
What did we do?
Well, obviously in terms of... there's been a scenario where we had somebody that wouldn't have been able to probably install because of where the cut was on his hand. So we were able to utilise them in a different way. They were doing surveys for us. And, you know, these guys are subcontractors, you know, to a degree we have no real responsibility to them to keep them in work. But I think here we don't treat them as subcontractors, but they're a part of the Falcon family. So we made an effort to make sure that he could continue to work and continue to earn money. And I think there are definitely other employers that wouldn't. And we give a shit about that. Yeah, and we do, and we give a shit. You know, when he got hurt, we were genuinely like, oh, God, you know, is he going to be okay? And, you know, and I'm sure there are definitely people out there that would assume it's, because I think sometimes when you talk about family-run businesses and when we talk about being a family, I think some people view that now as a bit of a red flag. Yeah. Because it's, well, I'm going to be expected to do more because on the guise of it being a family business. So, you know, that's just how people take that. But we are a family-run business, and I think we do care about them like they are our family. And whether people think that's fake or not, I suppose that's on them, isn't it? Yeah. But people that work here, I think, would be able to attest to the fact that that we do care. Yeah. And so now we've got to a point, the business has grown. We've had children, and, you know, you were there for that, and I wasn't really around a fat lot. Well, that's why I came to work here, just so I could actually see you occasionally. And the effort that got put in, you know, I know from a respect perspective that we would have never achieved what we'd achieved without you being there in the background and allowing me to be able to go and work 18, 20-hour days, 7 days a week. Well, that's nice of you to say so. No, I think we both play our parts, and it's different times in the life, isn't it? You know, when I had the kids and we had them close together, you know, I always look back on that as a really lovely time. I you know, the baby I really enjoyed it, and I was always, you know, fortunate enough that I could be at home and I could have that time with the kids, because not every person can have that. And, you know, I'm really grateful for that. And obviously that stems from you working those long hours. And I know for you, it's not it's not a chore for you. You love it, and so it's, you know, that certainly makes it easier. But it's hard work, isn't it? And you miss out on milestones. You know, you miss out on stuff. And, you know, like, I think for the first few years of our relationship, like family parties, I think people thought I made you up because you never there on any of them. Like, you know, she hasn't really got a boyfriend. But it's just part of it, isn't it? You know, and like I said, we've been fortunate enough that I could be at home, and then obviously as the kids went to nursery and I was able to do a little bit more. I joke, but I didn't see you loads, so being here did give me that option. But also, why wouldn't I want to support the very place that helps us be a family and have our home and, you know, and what we have? Why wouldn't you support that? And I think it's hard because it could have worked or it could have not. And I think obviously the gradual pace that I went at starting at a couple of like mornings and then sort of building that up, and then as the kids have gone to school, it's been easier to be then full time, because it might not have worked. Yeah, you know, we might have thought, I can't see you all day. Yeah, you know, like the only time we have is when you drive home. But you know, I think it does work quite well with us. And like I say, I think it's hard to go and work somewhere else. You know, I certainly could do that, but I just think for us, it's what's important now to us both. I obviously came into this business because I met you, and then we got married. But you know, I feel just as responsible for it and love it as well. Yeah.
And that, how do you think that people become to love it? Like, what have we done to make people really feel part of it?
Well, I just think we've always included them. Like, you know, there are obviously times when we have conversations in this room here where you know, sometimes the staff aren't aware of it because it's things in the background, and we maybe need to get, you know, ducks in a row before we bring them into something. But also I think generally the actual running of the business and all of what we're looking to achieve, like, is always shared with them. So, you know, we've brought them into that. They're not just here to turn up in a morning and they've got no idea what the plan is about moving forward. And plus we push them as well to do better, but also just caring about their family, knowing their kids' names, knowing what they're doing on a weekend, knowing the milestones that they've got in their life, and actually genuinely asking about them and genuinely caring about the answer, rather than a bit of lip service of like, did you have a good weekend? And not really caring either way. Like, I think we do give a shit about like what they've done. And
what does Stacey give a shit about?
In a work capacity or just in general? Well, obviously, you know, you and the kids are the main. I think that's an easy answer, isn't it? I think that's what most people say. But yeah, I obviously care about that. I care about Vulcan continuing to do well. And, you know, by that continuing to do well, it's everybody else continues to do well. But I think I care about, I suppose, like, just people looking at you thinking, well, do you know what? She turns up and she does what she needs to do and she tries her best, because I do fail and I do make mistakes.
Do you care what people think?
Oh, God, I say I don't, but yeah, I think, yeah, you do. And I think it's hard as well, because I worry here, like, especially once I started to, you know, become more like management and then like becoming a director, I always worried of that element of, well, she's only that because I'm your wife, rather than I've earned that myself, you know, by doing, you know, a lot of external courses and trying to better myself within that industry. So yeah, that was always a big one for me.
But you pushed yourself to that, didn't you? Mm-hmm. You know, because by and large, you didn't have to work. You could have just stayed at home, and you know, and you were the one that went out there and pushed yourself and wanted to do your qualifications, wanted to do your degree. Yeah, that was never a forced.
No, never. I wanted to be able to say that when I made decisions or when I, you know, put something in place, that there was a reason behind it, and that was due to, you know, knowledge and experience of having, you know, a course and having degree and stuff like that behind me. That, And then I suppose feeling like you've earned it as well.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not just turning up and winging it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is
Yeah.
there is something to it, you know. There is, you know, and I don't, you know, not to say that qualifications mean everything, because I don't. There's how many people in the world have done fantastically well that don't have any qualifications, but that is what, for me, for my journey, that felt important to have that behind me.
And so, Stacey, on a personal level, who is Stacey on a personal level?
Well, I think.
Sounds like a nervous laugh.
Yeah, well, it's hard really, because I think it's so busy here. So like you're here, you're compliance director, and you know we haven't got any loo roll. Oh, okay. You know, but then then at home you become mum, because obviously the kids have got busy lives, and you know, so we spend a lot of time sort of running them around and what they want to do. So I don't think it leaves a huge amount of time for me, like as a person. Like I think for me and you, we don't do a lot, like we don't go on like date nights or anything, do we? You know, we go out for food and we always take the kids, and I think we've always been happy with that. And I am happy with that, because you know the kids are, you know, teenagers like this year, and I just can't really believe that that's happening, and I just find it races by, and they're gonna, you know, move out, and I just think like I'd rather enjoy that time with them now. And I think that that's enough, actually. Like I'm quite happy doing that. Like I don't want to go to the gym. And
what don't you like?
I don't like, sometimes I feel like, and you will agree with me, I'm a bit of a lastminute.com person, aren't I? And I do think that I would be better if I wasn't so much, but I love that like thrill of like, oh, I've got 2 hours to do this and it's going to take me 3, but I'm going to do it in 2.
Yeah.
Like I need that. I think that's a big part of my drive and push, but I do sometimes think it would be nice not to be so, you know, because it's a bit much sometimes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And can we cross the social media bridge? So the bridge of,
we don't agree.
not that we don't agree, but like, you know, why, I suppose my first question is, why would you not post online?
I just think that, like, if we talk about like LinkedIn, which is meant to be a business platform, so generally, you know, is more focused on that side of things, you definitely start to see other areas creeping in. But I think you see one message on there that somebody posts. There's one on there that you see about like, oh, an employee came to me and asked to work from home full time, and I was just like, whoa, just stop. As long as the work gets done, I don't care. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen that repeated by different people, and the wording doesn't even change. And I'm just like, that message isn't from you. Mm-hmm. It's disingenuous. All you've done is gone, oh yeah, that'll get me some likes, or that'll get people riled up, whatever it might be. There is generally, you know, you take 100 people, probably only 2 of those people have actually got something worthwhile to say, and the rest,
in your opinion,
in my opinion, that is, yeah, and that is my only opinion. And I you know, social media just doesn't factor into, I don't do something and think, I mean, I do think about it a bit more, because obviously you push us here to like take photos and stuff, but you know, I'm terrible at that in life as well. Like I go somewhere and you'll say, did you get photos? Huh, no, I forgot. You know, I'm terrible for it, but I just find that, and maybe it is a confidence thing, like, does anyone want to hear what I've got to say anyway? But I also don't feel that push to do it.
Who really gives a fuck anyway?
Yeah, maybe.
You know, who really cares? Who's watching?
And maybe that is one of those things that maybe I will care, though. And do I want to add that to a list of things that I might worry about? I am a worrier, and that's something I do struggle with sometimes. So why add something extra to my plate when it's unnecessary?
Them people that do it and saying that, you know, oh, they've copied the same shit text, etc., and they've put the same bollocks out there. You know, I get all of that. So when you start doing, you know, more and more of that, and more posting and getting better at it, where you're adding value to somebody, somebody might just see that message and it might hit them. And yeah, you've seen it 10,000 times, but they might have seen it for the first time. And at that point, is that not a real impact for that one person?
And I'm sure it is, but I also think you've got to, you've got to enjoy that. Whereas I would find that a chore, trying to have I worded it correctly,
No, fuck all that. I ain't bothered about that. I'm bothered about that one person that gets that value from it.
Mm-hmm.
So the main reasons why I do what I do, and the main reasons for starting this podcast, is to really push out there to anybody from, a 15, 16-year-old growing up not knowing what he wants to do, to a 60, 70-year-old that actually is still interested in learning.
Mm-hmm.
And that learning journey and pushing them boundaries of that nobody can stop you from me doing pot wash and chipping bricks at 12 years, 13 years old for me mate's dad, to now, running a multi-million-pound company. That growth journey has only been possible through to grit and determination and fucking blood, sweat and tears of the sacrifices of the parties, all of the shit that goes with it, that to a point where somebody thought that you were single or that I was fucking made up.
Yeah.
That for me, that's just part of that journey. And so when I'm sharing them thoughts online and when I'm pushing that, there's not a point in my head where I think that some person is thinking, what a dickhead. I don't give a fuck.
But that's you, isn't it? Whereas I do feel that way. And also, generally, I'm quite private and I don't...
But my point was that what we get in that is that one person that sees that today, that goes... think about how I'm showing up. How do you show up every day? That for me is massive. That for me is that one person that goes, you know what? Yeah. How do I show up? How do I look? How do I introduce myself? Is that not impactful?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not impactful. Look, there's been things that I've seen on social media that I've looked at it and gone, yeah, that is inspirational or motivational, what have you. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but also if we all did it, the internet would bloody explode, wouldn't it, if we were all doing it? I'm just saying it's just each to their own, isn't it? And it's just not something that interests me in the slightest. I would get bogged down by the negativity and what comes with it. And I know there's also positivity, but we also know that in the world, it's generally that you complain more about something than you would ever praise something. We're very easy to just let that go. We only ever complain on a TripAdvisor, stuff like that, where you go on and you make complaints. You go on and make complaints. How many do you ever read that are good? That's just, I think, the world as it is. And I don't want to be bogged down by it.
No, agreed. But I'm just trying to point out that, the people that are pushing themselves, the people that are trying to put themselves out there, there's not a problem with that.
No.
And that it's actually allowed and people can judge. And a lot of the team here,
people are always going to judge.
They're always like, oh, fucking hell, Charles, And I totally get where they're coming from, because they either don't want to be on film, they don't want to be on camera. I get all of that. But for me, it's about the impact that I can have on the future generation and people that are still in doing these roles. We forget the business size that we are now. That's the horn. That's the big horn.
Yeah, it is.
Which usually means that's...
There's going to be an explosion!
Because they carry high chemical goods.
It's called an upper tier coma site, which technically we're not part of. It's that there, but if that blows up, we're blown up too. Yeah, you were saying about if someone takes something from what you put out, isn't it?
Yeah, and that we're good to go, lads. Yeah. And that inspiration of, I look at some of the people I look at up to, Chris Williamson on the podcast front. That's why I've started this. He gave me that inspiration of you know what, a northern lad from the northeast has gone on this journey, and the people that he's met and the people that he's spoken to, all from setting off in in selling tickets to nightclubs and selling parties, you know. And that has given me inspiration of, you know what, like, if I can get anywhere near that, and if I can ever get a conversation with him, like, that for me is on the goal list, you know. And if I can add some value to what other people are looking in, and then you've got the haters on the other side going, you know. But that's because usually the haters only hate because they wouldn't do it, because they wouldn't put themselves in that uncomfortable situation, is it? It's that, you know, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah. And I've pushed myself all my life.
But not everyone is the same. Like, I don't like that kind of stuff, but I've still come on here because, you know, we do differ on our opinions on the social media side of things. But I also... you know, we're not sharing flash cars and big watches and jewellery and, you know, all the big house, because that is the real cringe, isn't it? I just don't believe in all that shit. No, and I think the problem I find with the social media, it's just that you know, there's people on there, isn't there? And there's lots of people that I like to look at on, you know, certain platforms, and it's great. Like, you know, like, you've got the ones that are like, they take the piss out of the influencers and stuff. But then you almost get to a point, once they start to become successful, they move further away from what they originally started with. And I know that's about, you know, you grow and you do things differently, but also the one thing that you started off, like, taking, like, the piss out of the influencer that, like, does certain things, and then they end up doing it themselves anyway, because they get sucked into that world of, oh, we'll promote this and we'll pay you this and whatever. And I know it's, you know, they're making a living and it's fine, but I just find that you don't have to do it. You don't, like, it doesn't mean that one person is more successful, or, you know, you could have another business leader that doesn't do any of this, but doesn't mean that he's less successful or she's less successful or inspiring to the team around her or him than you, because you put yourself out there and you talk about it. It doesn't have to be one or the other. No. And But
people are very judgy, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's just the world.
People judge that and go, you know, why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? Why is she doing that? You know, and I always think to myself, yeah, but, like, if somebody's getting some value from that, then keep doing it.
Yeah, and that's fine. And like, but you care about it. Yeah. And whereas I don't care about putting myself on.
I went through a period of about 3 or 4 weeks where I didn't post a lot because we were going through.
I know, everyone thought you were dead.
Proper transitional change. No, but some of the messages that I got were like, you know.
Oh no, I would see people out and they'd be like, "What's happened? Charles hasn't been." Yeah, I get it, and I totally, and it's great that you have that following as well. But then I also think that you're very comfortable being on the camera, and like, you are naturally. You know, quite a warm person that people sort of gravitate towards. I am not. You know, we have always said I'm a grower, not a shower, because I'm not, like, so I think when people do meet me first off, they're like, oh, she's a bit of a knob, isn't she? Like, and genuinely, I'm not that much of a knob, but I'm just not that way. You know, I could sit and do a podcast and it would be awful. I'd be posting and people would be like, oh my God, shut up. Because it wouldn't be inspirational. Like, it wouldn't, I'm not that way. I did the team meeting a couple of weeks ago, didn't I?
Yeah.
The energy that I bring is not as much as yours. That's just who I am. And, like, that's okay. And I'm absolutely fine with it. Like,
but do you have to have super pumped energy to be a leader?
Yeah, I think you do.
Do you?
Yeah, I think if you're a miserable bastard coming in every day, then who's going to care? No one's going to give a damn. You know, some people might be coming in thinking, well, I'm literally, you know, they're paying for this qualification, then I'm out of it. You know, you always get people like that. But I think if you're not pumped, you know, and excited about it.
You say you don't put a lot out there online.
No. I'd love to delete LinkedIn, but you won't let me.
It's not that I won't let you. You do what you want. But,
brilliant.
Like, you know,
newsflash, Stacey's deleting it.
But if you don't put yourself out online, do you see that as a detriment to the business?
I just think that potentially the position that I'm in, I generally don't speak to a lot of the clients. You know, you and Elliot are definitely more the two that go out and then and that know people. I don't generally go out to site as much, I don't go and do the meetings with people. I mean, obviously.
But if you don't advertise yourself, how does anybody know where to buy you from?
Who wants to buy me though?
No, but you know what I'm saying.
You
How
know,
does
like-
anybody know where to buy from? If you don't put yourself out there,
Mm-hmm.
nobody knows, do they? You know, until you've built a brand that's absolutely, you know, like Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many Coke adverts now do you see?
Oh, I know, yeah.
One. Which one's that?
The Christmas one.
Yeah.
Holiday.
And everybody knows that. Yeah, and everybody knows that, yeah? Because it's Coke, right?
Oh,
Very
no, well,
rarely
they've
see
done
a
that one
Coke
at
advert,
McDonald's,
do you?
haven't they, recently, where
McDonald's.
they don't even say their name, do
Yeah.
they? And they literally
'Cause
just
they don't
show
need
you
to, because the brands.
Yeah.
But when you talk about advertising, we talk about, like, you know, impact that I'll have for the younger generation coming through and the value add piece and all of that. But people then look at that and go, like, I want to be associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
Why do people wear certain clothes? Is it because they like the clothes, or is it because they like the brand? And so associating with that brand, people want to feel part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit like what we've tried to do with Falcon, where we've tried to make it people feel part of what we're doing, where we share everything. We share what money
But
we're
I
making.
think
we
I
share-
believe I'm in the background of that. I'm there to help do that. But as one of the, you know, the directors, that just isn't my place, because it's not my bag. I will always talk, you know, positively about the company, and will always try and promote it, you know, in ways that I can and people that I talk to. But as a rule, that isn't, you know, I'm not particularly client facing.
No.
So whilst I don't do that, I still have that part to play by the background, that when these people come in, they have everything that they need to
Don't
do
you
their...
think you're relying on somebody else to do that effectively?
Yeah, I am. I'm relying on you, and I know you can do that well, but I also think you rely on me to do my job here within the business.
Yeah, we rely on everybody to do
you know,
their
everyone
job
to
in
do
the
their
business.
job.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's okay. And I think also, why would you want to, and I get this, you know, be comfortable, but being uncomfortable. I get that. But also there are certain areas where you just, this is not my bag. This is not where I shine. So, and I don't want to do it either. So I'm not pushing myself to do it because I have no interest. Like, the taking pictures when your food comes out in restaurants, like, it drives me mad. Like, you see people and they're like stood on their table, and I think, oh my God, just eat the bloody food. Like, it'll be cold by the time you get to it. That isn't part of my... I just don't feel that way. Like, I find it really cringy. Like, people taking selfies, I walk past and I'm like, ugh. Like, and it's not, I don't know that person, but I just find the whole thing around it, you know, the girls like pouting, like our daughter does it, and I'm just like, oh God, it's horrendous. I hate it.
Dancing on the beach, filming
Dancing,
themselves.
yeah, you know, and I don't walk past. Like, it's a public beach. I'll bloody walk past if I want to walk past, and it's that. I find that just really, really frustrating, because I just feel like you're just, your whole life, like, there's nothing for you almost. Like, there's no... You
That's
know,
why
how
we don't share a lot of the personal stuff, you know, and I agree with that.
Well, I think
you know.
in recruitment now, people go through people's social media profiles, don't they? And, you know, you hear about people that go on, like, reality shows, and then they get cancelled because of a message they put out, like, 10 years ago when they were 15, and they, you know, knew bugger all, and they're just trying to be funny or whatever. And then, you know, and it, like... suddenly that person gets cancelled, and it's like, it can ruin their lives. You know, how many deaths do we talk about, suicides linked to, like, social media? But I get there is also positive areas to it, but I just think there are so many negatives. There are so many negatives, and I just think it's and it's not going to go away, and it's frightening really where it's going to end up.
So what impact do you think that Stacey Hassall will leave on this world when she leaves?
Not much. But I also don't think that many people do. There are nearly 8 billion people in this world. We all leave an impact in some ways because we've left behind children, or, you know...
Why'd you say not much?
Because I just think in the grand scheme of things, we are all tiny little specks of this, like, huge planet. Like I said, there's 8 billion of us. We're not all going to leave an absolute lasting legacy. You know,
but do you think that's more down to your self-confidence in leaving that lasting legacy?
No, I just think that that's reality. I think the problem nowadays is that everybody believes that they are going to be these, like, you know, Bill Gates of the world, and, you know, we're going to make all this money and we're going to do this and we're going to be amazing. Where actually there's...
Do you think being visible is a problem, though?
For me, or in general?
In general.
For me, I don't really like that visibility. I'm not that fussed.
But you said earlier about that you spoke about, you know, some of the people that you follow on certain platforms and that you like.
Yeah.
If they disappeared tomorrow...
It's not going to end my world.
No. But you like them.
Yeah.
And so you get inspiration from them, whether it's design or whatever.
Yeah, it is people's houses.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, you know, I'm going in to look for those kind of things. It's you know, it's a bit more fluffy, isn't it, really? It's the nicer side of, I suppose, social media, of seeing what people do when they, you know, do houses up and do refurbs and stuff. I like that kind of thing. But it can just easily twist into something that it isn't. You know, we know how much our kids are like TikTok, you know, hours on it, and it's just, I just think that the social media world tells these kids that they are going to grow up and become an influencer, or they're going to do this, and they're going to have, you know, they don't try anymore because I'm going to make, and I know people can make, I'm not just, you know, I know people can make money from it, but not everyone's going to do it. And no one wants to work anymore. We find that in this industry. Yeah. No one wants to come into it anymore because, what do you mean? I've got to like crawl around on my hands and knees for 8 hours. No, I ain't doing that because I'm going to go and put this podcast out, or I'm going to go and do, you know, this. And that's fine. Well, I'm not saying that like these things aren't good, but generally the people that have got podcasts, you know, the real successful ones, this is not their only source of income. Like they have come from business and industry and all of that, and they've built it, they've become successful, and they're then talking about it. I feel like we're gearing up to a world where people sit down and like, well, let's talk about this, and like, you've got no life experience, you've never had a job, how are you, you know, even going to have really a fully formed opinion of stuff that you don't understand? And that's where I find it frustrating.
Totally. So if we keep building what we've built so far, how do you think that we'll end up supporting each other as the business continues to scale?
Well, I think we'll always just genuinely support each other because we're husband and wife, and we're colleagues, I suppose. But I think as the business grows, obviously, you know, we're not, our personal lives are, you know, the kids are not babies, so we're not like as beholden to them. So that does have that ease, that pressure. And we know there's certain areas in our life where we know we could make changes to make our life simpler, and I think we're looking to make those, aren't we? Over the next year or so, to try and make our life simpler, which also then just helps us to be able to, you know, crack on here. So I think generally, like, there's no major plan on how. I think we're just generally quite supportive of each other anyway. I think we have an idea of where we would like to be in 5, 10, 15 years time. Might not go that way, you know. I think every plan can deviate, can't it? But I think we're on the same page as to where that end goal is for us, so I think we'll just navigate it the best we can to get there, won't we?
Do you think what we're doing at the moment and the way the business is progressing, do you think that we are on track for that? Do you think we are
I do.
on track to where we want to be?
Yeah, you know, there's still lots of work to be done, and that's not to try and, you know, the staff that we've got here are great, and I think everybody's all in to make it great. And
the grand plan.
Yeah, you know, I think everybody's on board, and I think that it's really lovely when you see just how people get involved, and, you know, they're pushing themselves out of their areas of expertise and going into different areas to help, because we've had
getting comfortable with being
getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Well, you know, we've had a lot of holiday and illness, haven't we? And people have had to step up and out of their comfort zone, and I think everybody has done that, which is lovely to see. And I think there is still work to be done, but I think it's always a never-ending cycle, that, isn't it, of where we need to be at. So yeah, I think we're on plan to get to where we want to be. I just think it's always going to be hard work, isn't it?
And if you had one message to leave to the world, what would that be?
I think sounds a bit like cliche, but literally like getting to your deathbed and just going like, I had a good life and I did what I wanted to do and I tried to be a good person, but I had a thoroughly good time. You know, I want this to be thoroughly washed up, you know, like I don't want to be preserved like some like oil painting, or, you know, I want to have a, you know, glass of wine in my hand.
Yeah, no, totally.
Eating a, you know, eating a Mackey's burger. Like at the end, I want to.
And that's why I feel like so positive about doing the podcast, because for me, it's that core of really give a shit, and that would be my one message. Like, give a shit, regardless of what you're doing, whether you're doing your driving lessons, doing your driving test, taking an exam, sending an invoice, doing a survey, being an installer,
not half-hearted,
whatever it is, right? Just show up and be the best version of you every day. And that give a shit just means everything to me, you know. And obviously, yes, it's the purpose of Falcon, and I've embedded that into the values of the company. But for me, it's that, you know, one message: just give a shit about how you show up, give a shit about the people around you, and give a shit about why you do it. You know? Yeah,
I think, but also recognise, and it's all right to say one weekend, I don't give a shit this weekend. I'm just going to lie here and do it because that's what I need for it, and that's fine. And I think that's one of the biggest things that social media plays a part in, and sometimes that and the way you present yourself is that people talk about failures and you need failures to grow and stuff, but I actually find that you're not really celebrated for your failures. You know, you are so harshly judged by them, whereas it's all right to just say, I didn't do great, like I didn't do as well as I thought, or, you know, it just didn't work out the way I thought it was going to work out. You know, really stupid things. You know, if I try a new recipe and it goes awful, like I sit there and I'm like, it's crap. Like, it tastes awful. And really bothers me because I think, like, you tried and you put your time and effort in, but it ain't just gone your way.
What have been your biggest failures on a business and personal level?
Failure, I think, at work. I'd probably say maybe it's some bit more tunnel vision, like I'm very much in my department, and probably not.
Nothing to do with the 250 grand that we lost in a pub that you decided to buy?
Well, we decided.
I'd put that down as your biggest fucking failure.
I thought you meant this business. If we're talking other businesses, that probably does just probably feature in the top 3. I suppose I'm not probably the leader that I should be
at this stage.
But I continue to show up and give a shit and try my hardest, and sometimes it ain't enough, is it?
No.
And then personally, I don't necessarily think I've had loads of failures. You know, I think we're very lucky. I think, you know, everyone has shit, don't they? You know, things that happen in your life and things that go wrong. And I think we're quite resilient as people. Yeah. You know, like we've had tough times and we've had issues and we've had, you know, illness, like Bob when he was born. You know, we've had lots of things, but we've always got through together. It's all a bit cringe, isn't it? We got through, but we did. You know, we got through together, and I think generally. We're one of the lucky ones, you know. I think we've got a good marriage, and I think we've been together a long time, and, you know, not everyone gets that anymore. You know, we live in this sort of throwaway society almost, like
16 years married, aren't we? December.
16 years married, yeah. You know, and I think that's something to be
proud of,
you know, celebrated and proud of. And, you know, we don't always see eye to eye, do we? But I think genuinely we're both on the same page, I think, of where we want to end up in life.
But we're not scared of losing, are we?
But we're not scared of losing. So I mean, failures, I think, in my personal life, you know, you've had bits and pieces, but there's nothing that really stands out to me of like, that was absolutely horrendous, and I really made a mistake there. I don't know, I mean, what would you say? Is there something that sticks out to you on a personal failure? Because I'm struggling to think of something.
No. my questions for you. Or?
No, I know, but I'm genuine. It's just because I struggle. I'm struggling to come up with something that I feel is noteworthy enough.
We obviously took the pub on, didn't we? That was fucking catastrophic.
But that is probably more of a business thing, isn't it?
It was, yeah. And then personally, I don't think you have greatest of self-confidence, and that's why I believe you lean into that side of I don't like that on social media. I don't like you doing that. Sometimes that can feel like unsupportive. When you go, oh, here he is again. Here he is again.
We do like to take the mick out of you, though. No, and
it can come across as unsupportive.
Yeah, and obviously you wouldn't never want that to be.
I don't give a fuck.
No,
it make no difference to me. Because I don't care what the other person thinks about me.
No, but you should care what I think about you.
But I don't care what you think of me. That's true. That's true.
But don't you think you should?
Why?
Because I'm your wife.
Yeah, but I do everything that I can possibly to make you have help you have the best life possible.
No, but would you not think I value that opinion of what she thinks?
I value your opinion. That's totally different. That's totally different. But I value otherwise I wouldn't ask you, would I?
Well, I'm not. I'm sat here now, so I can't. I'm not supportive because I wouldn't be sat here now. I'd be saying absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's just we all do things like that. Somebody else it's inconceivable them is to think like I could never do that.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm not supportive of it. It's just that it would never factor into my life. It would never be something, I'm going to create a podcast, or even I'm going to just start putting myself out there more on social media. Because
you don't want it.
I don't want it. No, I don't want it at all. No. I don't have zero interest in it.
And for me, like I said, I've explained, but it's that add value. When you're not bothered about adding value to anybody.
It's not that I'm not bothered about adding value to people, but I don't think social media is the only way. You can do it in your day-to-day life. You can add value to somebody. You can be, in the supermarket. I remember being in the supermarket once and having a chat with a woman in the queue, and she just lost her husband. And okay, maybe but she's walked away, and we had a giggle, and she said, "Oh, it's been nice to laugh." Does that not add value to that person? It might only be for a brief moment in time. That's why I do the random
acts of kindness, because they're really, really important, and that once a week of going in and paying for Mrs. Jones's fuel when she doesn't even know who you are, and she goes to pay and she's finished and pay, and then you leave and you walk past her on the way out and she doesn't even know who you are, and those are the big things that
they're nice things.
They're
aren't
absolutely epic, and she doesn't know who paid, and you don't want the recognition for it, and like that woman that tracked me down once I paid that bill at the pub there, and they're just they're unreal, and so I think that there's impact there that you can have by not being seen, but then there's impact that you can have by being seen, and I think for me, you have always supported that journey that we've been on. I'm not saying that, and I've always respected your opinion. But if I feel so strongly about it, that's when I don't give a fuck about it, and that's when it will become.
But I know that about you. Jesus Christ, 20 years nearly together. I'm definitely aware of.
I give a shit about that, and that is really important to me.
You'll do it.
I'll do it.
Oh yeah, I'm fully aware.
Yeah. So.
It's definitely something I've learnt over the years of us being married.
Totally. But thank you for coming on, and
you're welcome.
Thank you for being part of it.
Thanks for having me.
We'll continue to smash it as we go through life.
And I'll come on in 100 podcasts and see if I've changed my opinion on them.
Okay, fair. Thank you.
Thanks.